Okay. One Piece chapter 1137. So I knew Oda was cooking something here. So I was like, oh, this is Shanks Jr. Okay, so this is Shamrock. And he's the son of one of the elders. So who the fuck is Shanks? Like that always, like, that seems to come up every so often. Who is Shanks? Because he looks like Shanks, so is Shanks the son of one of the elders? And that explains a lot. Because now I'm going back and I'm wondering, because again, Shanks was on Roger's crew. And we know, like, the different members of Roger's crew, the world government, for reasons that have not been fully disclosed, because they know what the One Piece is. But it's one of those things, like, Shanks has been given a lot of wiggle room. This man walked in there. Like, we know how strong the admirals are. Like, I was dumb enough to think that Luffy, and especially Ace, when they teamed up, they're going to beat the three admirals. That's one of, like, the shame moments of me going through One Piece for the first time. I was like, oh yeah, they're going to do it. Like, Shanks pulls up in there. He says, stop this war. And everybody stops fighting. That means that Shanks, that man's bloodline carries weight. He has to be the other child. Especially in the same chapter where we find out Hadruden and Loki are brothers. And you get all this talk about how there's, and racist Zoro pops up again, but you get all this talk about how there's dirty giant blood and etc. Like, is Shanks, like, the child of somebody that was not worthy of being a celestial dragon? Like, there's something there. Like, in the same arc where, in the same chapter where we get that information, in this exact same arc, we find out that Shanks previously came here. And he was able to put a stop to Loki. But then we find out that Shamrock is here. And the whole point is to bring the giants of Elbaf into subjugation to the world government. So it's like, who is Shanks? I know this is a long-winded intro. This is a reaction, so I'm not scripting the way I would on the Naruto channel, but it's like, who is Shanks? Like, now I need answers. Like, every now and then when I go through and I read One Piece, there will be moments in the arc where I just want to just binge all the way through. And this is one of them. Like, the only thing that's kind of keeping me from doing it now is, like, I have to budget for thumbnails. But it's like, Jesus Christ, man. I need answers. So let's just back things up. So we open up this chapter and we see Luffy and Rodo and Zoro and Nami. They're going into the castle. There's all this chaos that's there. Luffy is looking around. He's like, get to the keys, get to the keys. And we just get more perspective on how a small walkway for giants might be like an eternity for regular sized people to walk. And I like how Nami uses, her simp abilities, her ability to ensnare simps. She gets Rodo to pick her and Zoro up, and she's like, this will be a very long walk, but I'm so glad that we have you. And Zoro's like, yeah. Like, Zoro and Nami, like, those interactions kill me, because Zoro is thinking in the back of his mind, there are times where you get on my nerves, but there are moments like this where I appreciate the effect that you have on men, because Rodo is just carrying them. And we see all the chaos and destruction. And, I love this part of just One Piece where we just get, like, the backstory on the different islands that we're going to, because now we're finding out what happened here. All this chaos, etc. These were the scars from the fight, according to Rodo, that happened with Loki and with his father. All these bones and etc. that we see, it's all from what Loki did. Loki destroyed 100 men at that point, and as we're getting this, I would say tragic backstory, because it is tragic. As we get this tragic backstory of all this chaos that happened inside the castle, Luffy is the most unserious person ever. Luffy's like, look at these skulls, look at these horns. Like, Luffy's that little kid that goes outside and picks up a skunk and brings it into the house and says, look what I found. And it's so innocent that you can't help but laugh, even though you want to be angry. Like, Luffy, I get what Oda's doing here. I get it. It's one of those things, like, I used to be frustrated with Luffy because of some of the disrespectful and stupid stuff he did, but out of all the big three, like, Luffy's the closest to Goku. Like, if Goku had a child, it would be Luffy. And so, just like I have issues with Goku, I have issues with Luffy, but when I understand the overlap, he just has a soft spot in my heart. So, getting back to it, though, when Roto is talking, we find out what happened with King Harald. And basically what happened is, like, he was viewed as the greatest king of Elbaf, and we find out that he had the horns. The horns were a sign of having ancient dragon blood. He ripped the horns off, and it's because he was trying to just move away from that era of war of what the giants represented. And now, because what happened with Shamrock at the end of the chapter, it does kind of make me wonder if this is part of it. And so now what happened in my review previous to this, or reaction previous to this, where I'm like, is Elbaf being set up like another Wano? Sure enough, the world government has interest in Elbaf. So now I need to know, like, what else is here? Is it solely because of the fighting force that giants would provide? And it kind of, you look at it now, that expression, soft times make for, or hard men make soft times lead to hard men, however that expression goes. You have this island now where everybody is kind of stuck in a flux. You have people that remember how things used to be, but then you got all these kids where they don't necessarily know violence. And in the last chapter, you had the line put in passing where, they were surprised that so many giants on the island weren't pirates. And you just see how there's this perception versus what the reality is. And so it's like, it's going to be interesting. Luffy, he wants to find Shanks, and he runs into Shamrock. Now I need that. I need that interaction now. Oda's building towards something with Shanks. I need to see One Piece Red too, because, like, I've been told that One Piece Red is like a really big Shanks movie. So, and like somebody told me, like, Shanks' daughter in that movie is canon. So it's like, I need to see it because I feel like I'm missing something here. Like, if Shamrock and Shanks are related, I feel like I'm missing something. I'm going to have to watch One Piece Red probably sometime during this Christmas break. I'm recording this right before Christmas. So anyway, getting back to it, though, like, that's where you find out that Loki and Hadruden were brothers. Nami asks, like, oh man, so Loki and Hadruden are brothers. That's interesting. And then Roto's like, yeah, Hadruden was born of another woman prior to Haru's marriage to the queen. And when Zoro's like, so who cares if she's from a different giant nation? You guys are all giants. And it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm being tainted because of the racist Zoro memes. I was trying to shitpost in the Discord, and, like, I Googled something with Zoro, and I saw, like, the racist Zoro memes, and I was like, God damn it. Like, so, like, I'm trying not to get influenced by other stuff. So, like, I'm going to have to chill on the Google shit because I don't want to be spoiled. But, like, what's interesting to hear is when Roto kind of fires back, he's like, we're all giants. That's his way of kind of saying to Zoro, that's kind of fucked up what you're saying. Like, that will be like in real life where, yeah, somebody says all white people are the same, all black people are the same, all Mexican people are the same. And, like, anybody that's from those different cultures. I come from a multicultural family. I've got all three in my family. So it's one of those things like, I know that you can't necessarily say all black people are the same because there's different types of black culture, just like there's different types of white culture, just like there's different types of Hispanic culture, like, so it's one of those things like, I get it. I get what Hadruden's saying here. And even Zoro's like, oh yeah. Like, Oda's got to be aware of those memes because that is a very meta, self-aware thing to have Zoro be like, yeah, I guess you're right. But what I do like too is like Nami's used to kind of call out the hypocrisy because when Rhodo's like giants from other areas would tarnish the blood of Elbaf, Nami's like, you have a really bigoted view about other giants and humans. And, like, I don't know, maybe it's, a little projection on my part, because again, like I've got different ethnic groups in my family, but it's one of those things like, I never really understood this whole keep blood pure thing. At the end of the day, we're all human. Like, we're all part of the same human race. There are different ethnicities and, cultures are different, but that's what makes the human experience beautiful, in my opinion. Because even with cultures being different, there's stuff that overlaps. There's stuff that overlaps that connects us. That's how you build something new. So like, I like where this is going. I like where this is going. Again, it might be a little bit of projecting on my part. I'm glad Oda's kind of, he's never really shied away from it because even then, like we've seen mixed breeds before in One Piece. So it's one of those things like, it's interesting. And it makes me look at the Roto and Gerd and just now different interactions. Because like we know that there is a half giant and a half human child. And even with Roto, when Roto's saying this, Zoro's like, so if he's coming from a tarnished blood, why are you with this crew? And then we get the flashback. And we see how Roto and Hadruden treated him like an equal. He's like, oh, that's crazy. You make all these sea charts. Like, that's cool. He showed value. And he's like, do you want to be friends? And I like how you see it in their children. And the reason why is because children see the world in a black and white way. Children haven't yet been taught all the bullshit that divides us as adults. Children are humans in the most purest way. And once that light fades in a child's eyes, it's one of the saddest things in my opinion. Whenever you see adults that they still have that light that you associate with children, like they're just special spirits. Like I'm a firm believer of people that still have that childlike innocence. They're angels. Like, I don't want to get too deep into it. That's just my worldview. But what I like here is that for a moment, we see some of that younger Hadruden and some of that younger Roto. And then we transition over. And with Roto, when he begins to start talking about Hadruden, and he says he's an honest, straightforward man. It's just one of those things like maybe there is room for redemption for him. Maybe there is a happy ending for him. And when Roto's like, I want to help his dream come true, you see it with Nami and Zoro. Like that's how they feel about Luffy. Hadruden wants to be a king of all giants. Luffy wants to be the king of the pirates. So, I mean, there's something there. There's a redeeming quality there. Now, obviously, again, when Oda gives you all this soft-handed stuff, he has to hit you with the heavy-handed. And sure enough, he doesn't disappoint because we find out that Gunko and Shamrock have basically been trying to bully Loki into submission. and we get more of how the arrow fruit works, and we see what's going on with her legs and with her arms and etc. She's pummeling the guy, and even though Loki has basically been blinded because of the bandages on his eyes, he's been able to discern how her attacks are coming. He's like, oh, so your foot's going to accelerate to kick me in my right cheek, and then after that, when I turn, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to blah, 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 blah. Once Loki gets those bandages off, like, now I'm like, because again, I'm like, who is Shanks? Because Shanks whooped his ass. If he's able to discern this much, and his eyes, he's not using his eyes, I'm curious. Like, I want more Loki now. I really want more Loki. And what I like too is we see Loki as somebody that still kind of marches to the beat of his own drum, because, you know, Gunko's like, you know, people would kill for this opportunity to join, and you're turning us down. And even when being physically abused, Loki just stands on business. I like that. And I like how even Shamrock looks at it, and he's like, at a certain point, you have to know when to cut your losses. And he just tells her, like, we've seen enough. We've seen enough. Like, you know, we have to change tactics. But just when that happens, that's where he drops that bombshell. And he's like, I'm sick of all these useless people. I hope that we could have settled this in a more clean fashion. And even Gunko's like, he'd rather die than join us. And Shamrock's like, the hell with it. The warriors of Elbaf, who conquered the New World a long time ago, we're going to bring them under subjugation of the world government one way or the other. So things are heating up here. Things are heating up. And that's going to bring me to my chapter question. Like, do you think that Rodo is a character that can be redeemed? And then with Shamrock, because he is the son of St. Garling of the Five Elders, do you think, or did you think, I don't know if it's been revealed yet. If it's been revealed, don't tell me. But do you think that potentially Shanks is the other son of St. Garling? Like, or a cousin? He's got to be other son. Just because of what happened in this chapter, and we find out about dirty blood and etc. Like, if giants can do that, you better believe that celestial dragons and the elders, etc., could do that shit. Because we're learning more about the Void era and etc., and the different prejudices and stuff. I feel like something's here. I feel like I've not yet scratched the surface. So I'm going to be very curious to see how Oda kind of takes this moving forward. But so always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.